I'm excited to introduce Kev Johnson, Systems Engineer at Runecast. Kev, are you there?
Sure am, yeah. Hi, thanks for the introduction. And those prizes look pretty awesome. I wish I was in the draw for some of those things.
Maybe next time, but...
Yeah, great, thanks. Am I good to kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. Take it away.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So let's see if I can press the right buttons here. There we go. There's my first slide. Let's jump straight past that one, which was just basically what I'm going to talk about is some of the real problems that we see people have when they're dealing with compliance and complexity and risk within their environments that they're managing. But yeah, just jumping onto this one, this ugly chap is me. I actually got myself made to look really, I had a nice shave, trimmed the beard and everything. Then I realized that this wasn't on camera. So I'm a systems engineer at Runecast. Runecast is they're an organization based out of Europe. We look to solve a whole bunch of problems. I'm going to talk you through some of the kinds of problems that we look to solve. If anyone has any follow-up questions after this, please feel free to drop me a line on Twitter there, at Kev_Johnson. I'm not going to pin my podcast or anything like that. So let's jump straight on. So one of the things I didn't realize when I was putting together these slide decks was that this is a very, very US-based audience. So I apologize that this reference is going to be lost on, I imagine, everyone apart from me. So what I'm talking about here is, when we talk about security and compliance, they're kind of like birds of a feather. And this is a shot from a UK-based terrible situation comedy from the 1980s and 1990s called Birds of a Feather. But yes, what I'm kind of really driving at in this presentation is that security and compliance are not the same thing. Security is not compliance. Compliance is not security. You can be fully compliant with whatever standards are relevant to your environment, but that doesn't mean that you're secure. However, getting to that compliance point is a really good place to start when you want to improve your security posture. And, what may not be, what was secure yesterday, there's 0 days coming out all the time. I've seen a whole bunch of different vulnerabilities disclosed just in the past week or two. So you need to keep on top of these things because the attackers only have to be lucky once. You have to beat them at every opportunity. So just as an example here, this is a VMware security advisory that was published a couple of months ago, whereby an attacker with access to the network that your vCenter server was on could potentially just create themselves a full administrator account and do untold damage to the environment. It got CVSS v3 score of the maximum of 10. So we need to keep on top of these things, and Runecast can help you with that. Compliance can help you with that as well because they give us a baseline to work from. I like to get a few memes into my slide decks. So this is one of the things I really want to call out here is there are many security compliance frameworks and benchmarks. Pick the one that is relevant to you and stick with that one. Don't try and cover all of the bases because you will never leave work and you'll never sleep. Just a few of the security compliance frameworks available. So, DISA STIG for the military, PCI DSS for the payment card industry, HIPAA for healthcare. BSI is a German federal standard. It's kind of roughly analogous to NIST for the German market. CIS, the Center for Internet Security, they're doing some really good work in helping folks to improve their security posture. NIST for kind of US federal. And then there's the VMware Security Configuration Guide for VMware environments. And, these are all really good ways to improve your security, but, it's like the Hydra. You cut the head off one and two more come back. So these are the baselines that we use at Runecast. We can use one, we can use many, but I would suggest sticking with only the ones that you actually need. So if anyone's ever had to deal with audits at work, and I certainly have done in the past as well, you see this guy and he pops up from out of nowhere, typically kind of 4 to 5 weeks before the audit happens. And, when he appears, you just know that the next few weeks are going to be no fun because you're going to have a load of remediatory action that you need to take in order to get to that point where you're going to pass that audit. So the thing that Runecast really want to help you with from this perspective, and we do other things as well, but this, from a compliance perspective, we want to help you avoid this guy. But where do we begin? So we can read the relevant framework, we can digest it, we can map it to our environment, create controls, document the approach. Documentation is really important. And then we pay the auditors. They come in, they check the environment out, and they go either thumbs up or they give you a whole list of other stuff that you need to do, and then you have to pay them again, and then they come in again, and hopefully you'll pass it the second time. So that sounds nice and easy, right? PCI DSS, as an example, the 3.2.1 version of the standard is 139 pages, 54,500 words. I read it so that you didn't have to. It's not very interesting, let's put it that way. It's very, very dry. I'm allowed to say it's pretty dull reading. So just kind of pulling how, what we do with Runecast here, what we've discovered is 90% of issues within a VMware environment are caused by known, already documented configurations or driver versions or firmwares or, how you plug everything together. And everyone thinks that they're doing everything right. But when something goes wrong, you hit the VMware knowledge base, you hit the best practices guides, the security hardening guides, and you've been very reactive. And being reactive is not a great way of dealing with these things. So what we can do is we can show you this information. We can scan your environment and show you where your exposure to risk is so that you can prevent these issues up front. We solve these problems, as I said, by proactively scanning vSphere, vSAN, NSX, Horizon. We also have coverage for a whole bunch of different AWS services as well. And we're introducing new features all the time. So a couple of weeks ago, we introduced best practices support for Pure Storage. We've got a whole bunch of other stuff coming down the line as well. So there should be an announcement in, I guess, when's VMworld? In a few weeks. So expect some other information there. But the key word on this page is proactive. So we're proactively scanning your environment before you come across these issues, and we're going to show you what you need to do to get rid of these risks. And we can also do this, again, with the security compliance checks. So when it comes to security, there's a real tendency to deploy many firewalls and put lots of policies in place, and you end up with this kind of like security through complexity. And the problem with that is when something goes wrong, it's completely impossible to pick it out and to troubleshoot and find out what's caused that. So this is an image that I really like, and this is all of the neurons in a brain firing from various different stimuluses. And I think it's beautiful, but it also kind of really illustrates what happens when things get complex. But to put it a little bit clearer, we've probably all done something a bit like this. We start with a fresh, clean sheet. So, okay, right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to write a web page. Everything starts off simple, and you might even write some documentation, but you probably won't though. But it's okay because we can look at that HTML, and even I, who cannot code to save my life, I vaguely recall something back in the midst of time where I know what this is doing. So you can figure it all out. But the thing is, you start there, and then before you know it, you've got the matrix going on, and trying to figure out what's going on there is an entirely different ball game. So what we're looking to do at Runecast is really bring this visibility and clarity that you need, because once you understand how everything plugs together and where the risks are and where those interrelationships are, it can make your life significantly easier. So what I'm going to do now is hope that this is going to work. Let me just, this is my first time on this platform, so let's see if this works.
Looks good, yeah.
Come on. Okay, great. I still have the regular thing on my screen, but okay, cool. So once you deploy Runecast Analyzer, so it's a virtual appliance, you drop it into your data center, you deploy it to vCenter, you point it to some sources of data. And in terms of sources of data, what we're looking at is vCenter servers, we're looking at NSX managers, we're looking at Horizon connection servers. We've seen a big rise in the number of our customers who are heavily leveraging VMware's Horizon product just because everybody's working from home. So everyone's had to really upscale on the remote working side of things. You can also point it at a number of AWS accounts if that's what you want. And this is a really small deployment. Typically, we're looking at deploying 2 vCPU, 4 gig of RAM for up to 50 ESXi hosts. But we put all of this stuff in here. We've got a sweet little plugin for the vSphere client. So, in terms of you don't really want to have to check another location if you're a vSphere administrator. You just want to be able to look at the vSphere client and see, okay, great, what's going on here? We've got this vCenter, we've got these violations from best practices. Let's drill through into that, and then from there, oh, great, yeah, so here's what's going on. We've got NTP isn't running on those objects, and here's the list of objects that it's not running on. So the setup and everything is super simple. We have both online and offline capabilities. So we do have a number of customers that are kind of more, they have higher security requirements. And from a higher security requirements perspective, what I mean is they might be operating under the sea, for example. So there's no direct internet connection. But we still have to be able to provide these updates. So, we're pushing updates all of the time, and there's application updates and also knowledge updates. So things like updates to the VMware knowledge base. So something I didn't know until I joined Runecast is that there's just north of, in fact I checked this earlier today, there's just north of 28,000 knowledge base articles in the VMware knowledge base that are published in the English language alone. That's a lot of things to be checking. So if you need to, know what's going on in all 28,000 of those knowledge base articles, so that when this specific niche issue comes along, it's not going to happen realistically, is it? So what we do is we scan these environments and we give you this list of configuration issues that we see. So configuration issues can be all kinds of things. So in fact, let's have a look at some configuration issues now. So in this typically badly set up environment, but I would strongly recommend, at the end of this deck, there's a website you can go to. If you go to our website, you can sign up for a free trial. Just deploy it into your environment and see what it looks like. I thought my lab looked really good before I deployed this. I was a consultant for 7 years that pretty much my job was going around hardening environments. But we've got things like here. We've got an ESXi host can fail with a purple screen of death. And this is a known documented issue. There's the link to your VMware knowledge base article, and it's resolved by deploying a patch. And you would think that would be obvious, but patching is something that, as an industry, we have been historically terrible at. So, we can go through all of these things. We've got vulnerabilities in Apache struts on vCenter server, issues with drivers causing flapping interfaces, all of this stuff. Let's see if we can find some AWS stuff. So we've got some things, in fact, that's a good point to jump on. So we have a look at the security compliance side of things. So I've turned all of our baselines on, and this gives you, some pretty terrifying reading. But we can see here at the top, we've got PCI DSS. So let's jump to PCI DSS. And from this perspective, we've got PCI DSS coverage for vSphere. We've got coverage for a whole bunch of AWS products as well. So we've got AC2, IAM, S3, VPC. Also coverage for NSX. So we've got all of these things in here. And, so it's one of the questions that I normally get asked around this is, sure, but, vRealize Operations has got some compliance packs, and PCI DSS, I'm sure they do those. And, it's absolutely true, they do. And VROPS is an awesome product. But I would argue that there's a couple of really significant gaps there. And the first one is really the lack of a link between the actual standard itself. So in terms of what the auditors, what the security teams are interested in. So if they come to you and say, okay, well, how are you handling Control ID 133 for PCI DSS? You can come in here, you can search, and you can very quickly show them, these are the controls that we've got in place. And we can see, actually, yeah, we've got a whole bunch of things that we've got badly configured. So we might want to come in here and have a look and say, okay, yeah, so let's have a look at our findings. So we've got this specific host, and then we've got this VM, which is connected to a distributed port group with forged transmits set to accept. Now, this is bad behavior. This is a really bad idea. And there's countless other ones in here. Forged transmits we've got in there, rejecting MAC changes, things like promiscuous mode. You want to be made aware of all of these kind of issues. And so, yeah, we provide all of this. We've got full reporting capabilities, so you can spit all of this information out to Excel or to a PDF or to a CSV if you want to do some manipulation around there. But we're going to show you all of these risks that we have in the environment. And, we do this for all of these different standards, and we keep adding new standards all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down to another feature that we have that our customers find really, really helpful. And one of the things that I used to work for VMware. I was the tech marketing architect for vSphere Lifecycle for a while, and I traveled the world speaking to customers, talking to them and trying to find out, what we could do as an organization to help them to upgrade off unsupported versions of software. So this was around about the time of vSphere 5.5 going end of general support and vSphere 6 going end of general support. And one of the biggest headaches that customers had was, identifying what hardware they had that they could continue to use with the newer versions, and what hardware would need to be replaced, but also what hardware they could continue to use but just needed a little bit more TLC. And so that's a major issue. And what we can do with Runecast Analyzer here is we can identify across all of the different vCenter servers that we operate, so that we've got connected up to Runecast Analyzer. We can see here, everything in green is good, but we've got some red in here. So this ESXi 6.5 host has got problems. Configuration possibly incompatible. So if we look down here, the server, the PowerEdge R730, they're a great workhorse. I've deployed lots and lots and lots of those into racks over the course of my career, and we can see it's fully supported on ESXi 6.5. But we have a problem because it's not supported with this specific BIOS on the HCL. And if we look down here, we can see these are all the supported ones. So we would need to get that changed. So typically, we're probably going to need to actually downgrade that BIOS. But we can also do the same thing for I/O devices. So I/O devices are they're managed in terms of the driver and firmware combination. So we can see the driver here, 691020, is on the list. It's a supported driver, but it requires a minimum firmware of 21.3.4. So that's all good. And we do the same thing for vSAN controllers as well. So we can see vSAN has got a much more strict HCL where you must match both the driver and the firmware from the same row, and that's why we've got a problem here. But one of the big things that we can do that can be really helpful, and as people are starting to plan their upgrades to things like vSphere 7, we can come in here and go, okay, well, let's have a look at the ESXi HCL for vSphere 7, and we now can see we've got problems with all of these servers. These three down here running ESXi 6.7, they're absolutely fine, but if we come in here, we can see that Dell 271 BIOS that was working fine previously is not a supported BIOS for ESXi 7. Other than that, the server's good, so we need to upgrade that BIOS to a supported BIOS. I/O devices, okay, so we've got this Dell H710P Mini. Let's see what we've got in here. And actually, this has just been added to the HCL, I think, in the last week. So the last time I looked in this environment, this was not supported for vSphere 7. So this is, we're pushing out these updates regularly. So every time VMware updates does HCL, we update as well. So yeah, we've got all of this in here, and we can see, yes, it's going to be supported, but we need to upgrade the firmware because we're on 23.14. In fact, no, we're on 21.35. We need to be on 23.14. So we've got some major work we need to do there. And again, the same with vSAN. One very quick last thing I want to show you is we sometimes get asked about, how can we get from where we are to where we need to be? And we have this plugin for vRealize Orchestrator, which can really help there. So I'm just going to kick this off very quickly. And we can see here we communicate with Runecast Analyzer instance, and then a vCenter server instance. And then we select a standard. So let's say we go with PCI DSS. Let's say we want to remediate virtual machines, but we can also do ESXi host and distribute port groups. Orchestrator will now communicate with those objects, and it will pull back a list of objects that are not compliant with the standard we selected. So this sometimes takes a moment. There we go. We can tell this is live because it's taking longer than it used to do. There we go. So let's just select from our list of impacted objects here. We've got a bunch of virtual machines. We could do all of them. We could just do a select few if only those are the only ones that are required for PCI DSS compliance. And what we can see here is that this list has been populated with all of the configuration items for these objects that are not compliant with the standard that we selected. So we can hit accept, we can hit submit, and that will then go away and it will reconfigure those objects. So that's just a very, very quick whistle-stop view of some of the problems that we can help to solve with Runecast Analyzer. If you want to learn more, I'd urge you to get in touch with our team, and we can do you a deep dive for certain. In terms of the architecture, we have this virtual appliance. It runs on premises, doesn't require any internet connection. I've just realized this slide needs updating. They set the rules engine in the appliance is now patented. So we're good there. We have our repository that runs online. We've got some AI built into that that's scraping all these sources of data and pushing them down to your appliance, either online or you can sneak connect them into the appliance. Business benefits, we're looking to save you some time, reduce outages, improve security, minimize risk, and reduce costs because outages cost money because they cost time. And on that note, I'm just about bang on time. If anyone wants to learn any more, please go to runecast.com or email us at innovate@runecast.com. And on that note, I shall open the floor to any questions that we might have.
Absolutely, yeah, great presentation. Love the live demo, Kev. Thank you so much. We do have a number of questions for you. The poll question I just brought up on the screen says, what additional information would you like about the Runecast solution? And Kev, there's a ton of questions I put in the folder there. I count 20.
Really have.
20 good questions.
We're probably not going to get through all of these, but I'll get through all of them, definitely. So what do you recommend as a security framework? One that's adaptable and flexible to meet changes. To be honest, in terms of the framework that you're using, it's usually driven by the verticals that you're operating in and the geo that you're operating in. So, in terms of if you're working in the finance industry, then HIPAA is unlikely to be relevant to you. If you want a generic framework that's just really good at at helping get you improve your security posture, then really the folks at CIS have got benchmarks for pretty much everything. And again, Runecast can help you with CIS. We're CIS certified, so hopefully that one was helpful. Do you see vSphere Lifecycle Manager providing similar proactive analysis to what you provide? I thought that question might turn up. Thanks for that one, Steve. So in terms of the Lifecycle Manager capabilities, I think they're great. In terms, you can do the HCL checks, although testing we found various different results from that perspective. But the problem I have if you're operating in a larger environment and you have lots of hosts, lots of clusters, is that Lifecycle Manager operates at a host level if you're still managing using Update Manager. So you have to do those HCL checks for every host that's in your environment. If you've upgraded and you're managing your clusters using VLCM, then you can do that analysis at the cluster level. But what we can do is we can do it not only at the vCenter level, we can do it across many vCenter servers at the same time. So that's kind of the way I see that we're a little stronger on that point of view. I'm not sure how much more time have we got for Q&A. I'm quite happy to ramble through all of these.
Just a couple more minutes, probably. What other questions?
Okay, so is there any kind of remediation built into the products? That's from Rodney, or do you have to manually go and resolve the issues? So we always show you how to resolve the issues that you've got. So there's, for every single finding, there is documentation that will tell you how to manually remediate. However, as I showed you at the end there, we've got the plugin for vRealize Orchestrate that helps with the security compliance side of things. We're working on some really cool stuff that I don't know if I'm really allowed to talk about in terms of, because we do get asked about the automated remediation quite a lot. So, expect some further announcements. I imagine that will probably be after VMworld, but, that's the kind of direction of travel we've got there. I've got one more very quickly. How many admins would you say are typical for keeping an eye on a Runecast installation, let's say for an SMB versus mid versus large enterprise? So I'm over in the UK, and SMB to me in the UK is an organization that's got maybe 20 staff and one person looking after IT. And some of the feedback that we get from, even from our really large customers, we've got a really large oil and gas customer in the States, and they have one guy who it's his job to basically just to go through all of the findings in Runecast Analyzer and deal with them. And that's just a kind of business as usual thing. And that's just his day in, day out job. But we've got some case studies from some of our partners in kind of managed services, and they say that they save between 6 and 12 man days per month with what they see, with the kind of proactive approach that they get with Runecast Analyzer. So I probably better call it a day at that, but I will definitely, everybody who's submitted questions, I will get back to you through the platform, however we do that. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for the questions, and thanks for listening.
Excellent. Great presentation. Love the questions there. Love the live demo. I appreciate you being on. Thanks, Kev.
Cheers.